Discover the incredible journey. Poor girl's heartwarming message transforms paralyzed millionaire. Lily had a sparkle in her wide, bright eyes that could outshine the sun. At just 12 years old, she dreamed of changing the world from the cramped confines of her little room in the small, bustling town of Maplewood. Raised by her fiercely hardworking single mother, who wiped tables at a local diner for pennies, Lily grew up on stories of struggle and survival. Every night, they would lie in bed, her mom sharing tales of courage and hope, igniting a fire in Lily's heart to become a motivational speaker. But reality was like a heavy weight on her chest. Dreams felt like distant stars, flickering out of reach in a sky of grit and grind. One hot afternoon, as Lily swept floors during a community service project for local veterans, she stumbled upon a mansion that towered like a giant among mere mortals. It had been untouched by the sweat of hard work, and remained a symbol of wealth and privilege. Curiosity tugged at her, and she stepped up the polished steps. With a deep breath, she knocked on the massive door, convinced that every person had the right to be seen and heard. The door creaked open, revealing Richard, a man confined to his wheelchair, a millionaire with a past that had turned to bitterness. Once a thriving entrepreneur, now a prisoner of his own fears. His eyes were dark, the walls of his home mirroring his desolation. But Lily, with her buoyant spirit, refused to be intimidated. "Hi, I'm Lily," she beamed, sunshine breaking through gray clouds. She didn't see a millionaire. She saw a soul yearning for connection. At first, Richard's replies were curt, his bitterness palpable. But day after day, she returned, armed with stories of hope from her mother, tales of the battles they had fought against life's unfairness. Slowly, the ice surrounding Richard melted. For every joke Lily cracked, a ghost of a smile flickered across Richard's lips. Each visit, she chipped away at the thick wall of contempt he had built. With every laugh shared, hope surged like a warm current through them, connecting their disparate worlds. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Their blossoming friendship seemed like sunlight breaking through a storm, but shadows loomed. Richard had secrets. A scandal haunted him like a ghost, threatening to turn budding trust into ashes. As doubts crept in, Richard questioned if he was worthy of Lily's kindness. And Lily too faced the truth that maybe forgiveness was as complicated as the world they lived in. The community would soon gather for a town hall meeting, a platform where Richard's past would unfold. All eyes on them. Would this shining friendship survive the weight of secrets? Could Richard, the man lost to doubt, embrace the fragile beauty of vulnerability? And could Lily, the spirited girl with the heart of gold, find her voice amid the chaos? As the clock ticked down to their moment of reckoning, a thick tension hung in the air, leaving them both wondering, can a single heartfelt moment change everything forever? Lily stood before the town hall, a gathering place of whispers, curious glances, and simmering anticipation. A mixture of excitement and anxiety danced in her stomach like butterflies trapped in a jar. She could feel the weight of the community's gaze resting heavily upon her and Richard. Would they see the beauty of their connection, or the scars of Richard's past? The night was cooler than expected, the kind of chill that makes your skin prickle. As families settled into the folding chairs, the fluorescent lights flickered harshly, illuminating the hesitant faces that filled the room. Richard sat beside her, a silent mountain of anxiety, his hands gripping the arms of his wheelchair. "Are you ready?" Lily whispered, breaking the silence. She could see shadows beneath his eyes, the remnants of sleepless nights. He gave a half-hearted nod, but inside, worries wrestled for dominance. What if they discovered everything? What if they turned against him? The moderator, an earnest-looking woman dressed in bright teal, stepped up to the microphone, her voice echoing through the room. "Thank you all for coming tonight. We have an important topic to address." People shifted in their seats, murmurs spreading like wildfire. Lily glanced at Richard, whose expression was a fragile mix of dread and determination. She reached out, brushing her fingers against his arm. Just remember, you're not alone. I'm right here. The moderator began to recount Richard's achievements, the shining highlights of a life filled with promise and ambition. But then she shifted tones. However, we must also address the allegations surrounding him. The fallout from his past decisions, the loss of trust. The room grew dense with unspoken thoughts. The air felt thick, and Lily could sense the judgment rising. Richard's fingers tightened, whitening against the wheelchair. He looked lost, like a ship caught in a storm. Lily took a deep breath, her heart racing. Richard, she started, her voice barely above a whisper. But something felt different. Courage surged within her, bubbling to the surface. I believe we all have stories, don't we? Moments we're proud of, and moments we wish we could change. I've seen Richard's heart, and it's good. We need to listen not just to the mistakes, but to the humanity behind them. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Heads turned, some faces softened while others hardened in skepticism. Richard looked at her, surprise in his eyes. Lily, should just let me speak, she urged, her voice growing stronger. I know what it feels like to be judged by where you come from. Her voice trembled with earnestness. But we can't let our past define us. We can choose to rise above it. Silence enveloped the hall. Everyone leaned in, captivated. Richard's shoulders relaxed, the tension easing slightly. Here was Lily, a beacon of light, unafraid to confront the darkness. Taking the leap, Lily continued, don't we all deserve a second chance? To be given a chance to change? Richard's heart swelled with gratitude, but guilt followed closely behind. He had hurt people, left chaos in his wake. Was he truly deserving of redemption? The moderator began fielding questions, skepticism spilling forth from the crowd. But what about the money? The scandal? How can we trust him? As the discussion swirled, Lily sensed the hope still flickering like a candle in the time of doubt. Thank you for your questions. Richard's voice broke through the human tide. It was unsteady yet firm. I'm not here to offer excuses. I'm here to say I'm sorry. I've made choices I regret deeply. As he began to open up, each confession peeled back layers, revealing the struggles behind the man. Would vulnerability pave the way for a fresh start? Would Lily's beacon of hope guide him to redemption? Or would the shadows win? With heartbeats echoing, the crowd's reactions swung like a pendulum, unpredictable and raw. Could this community go beyond judgment? In that pivotal moment, Lily realized their journey was far from over. The weight of their truths hung heavy in the air, but it was also lined with possibility. And as they pressed on, Lily's and Richard's eyes sought each other. Could they turn the tide together? Or were they destined for further trials ahead? Richard's heart raced as he spoke, every admission stripping away a layer of the armor he had built around himself. The crowd watched in a mix of anticipation and disbelief, the energy in the room thick with emotions. He felt naked before them, his soul laid bare in the pursuit of honesty. I lost everything, he confessed, his voice catching. Not just money or status, but the trust of those I cared about most. And it was all my doing. I thought I could fix it, course correct my mistakes, but the past always seems to linger, doesn't it? The murmur swelled, some nodding in sympathy while others remained skeptical, arms crossed defiantly. Richard glanced at Lily. She was his lifeline, a soft glow amidst the storm of judgment. She looked back at him, her expression unwavering, which gave him the courage to continue. Trust is not something that can be earned overnight, he added, his words gaining momentum. It's rebuilt through action. I'm willing to show you that I've changed, but how can we believe you? A voice shouted from across the hall. It was a woman with short, dark hair, her glare piercing. You say you've changed, but how can we trust that this time will be different? Richard's stomach churned. For a moment he faltered, the walls he had begun to build around his heart crumbling again. What could he say that would convince them? How could he prove he meant it? Just then Lily stood. Because he is here, she called out, confidence ringing in her tone. He is choosing to be here, to face everyone and speak his truth. That's already a step forward. Isn't that what we're all seeking, a chance to prove ourselves? Richard couldn't he believe it. Lily was standing strong, just as she promised, fighting for him in the face of doubt. The sound of her voice grounded him, reminding him of the vulnerability that allowed for true connection, a force more powerful than any judgment cast upon him. The moderator, sensing the shift, took the opportunity to pose a new question. What specific actions will you take to rebuild trust within this community? This was it. Richard took a deep breath, the air feeling charged. I'm willing to start programs for young people to mentor them, guide them away from the paths that led me to disaster. I want to be a part of their lives, show them they can rise above their situations. Was it enough? The concerned expressions danced before his eyes, as he continued. I want to donate to the local charities, support causes that uplift us all. I can't change the past, but I'm here to be a part of a better future. Lily's heart swelled, sensing the sincerity behind his words. She watched as some of the doubt in the audience began to melt away, their expressions shifting toward contemplation. The woman who had challenged him lowered her arms, a hint of uncertainty on her face. And what if you don't succeed? Richard locked eyes with her. Then I try again. Because I owe it to myself and to this community to keep trying until you believe in me. The room fell into a hushed stillness. It was monumental, the kind of moment where hope clashed with skepticism. Faces showed hesitation, but Richard felt the flicker of opportunity in the air. Then amid the silence, a hand shot up at the back of the hall. It was Ethan, a local high schooler who often struggled with self-image. What if we all make a pact? To trust each other first, and work towards respect and understanding? A ripple of surprised laughter followed his statement. It was light, but it pierced through the tension, slowly filling the room with a breath of hope. Yeah. Another voice chimed in. At least let him try. Relief washed over Richard, rekindling the connection he had almost given up on. This community had the power to shift, to embrace transformation. In that moment, he realized they weren't just giving him a second chance, they were giving themselves one too. As the voices grew stronger, a wave of encouragement began to rise. Lily squeezed Richard's hand, both of them still grappling with the enormity of what was happening. Could this spark of hope be enough to ignite a fire of change? Before the gathering could fully take shape, a shadow loomed at the entrance, and all heads snapped around. It was a familiar figure, one they hadn't expected to see, the person who had been instrumental in Richard's downfall. What would this unexpected presence mean for their fragile breakthrough? The figure stepped into the room, and the air seemed to thicken. It was Anthony, Richard's former business partner. The memories flooded back in an instant, the late nights, the dreams they had spun together, the betrayal that had brought it all crashing down. Richard felt his heart sink. Mutters spread through the crowd as Anthony approached, his gaze sharp and calculating. He exuded an aura of authority, and for a moment, it felt like the warmth in the room had been sucked away. Richard's heart raced again. Had they come so far only to be knocked back? Anthony? Richard managed, his voice trembling. What are you doing here? The murmurs turned into a low grumble. Some were wary, echoing disbelief, while others seemed curious, intrigued by the unexpected arrival. Anthony stood tall, a mix of confidence and smugness radiating from him. He turned to address the crowd, the smile on his face falsely magnifying his charisma. I had to see this for myself, he said, his voice carrying easily through the silence. The town seems abuzz with excitement. Richard, the new changed man, reclaiming his life. Richard's stomach twisted. Each word dripped with sarcasm. I came here to explain myself, Richard said, trying to steady his breath. Not to take part in your commentary. Explain yourself? Anthony laughed. And what would that be? That you suddenly see the light? That after all this time and the damages you caused, you find it in your heart to change? It's charming, really, but you've just traded one form of manipulation for another. Lily's grip tightened around Richard's hand. She could feel his tension rising. This was the last thing he needed, the voice of his past ringing in his ears. But she also could see a spark of determination flare in his eyes. Richard had fought too hard to let Anthony derail him now. Richard, Anthony continued, turning on him. You're only fooling yourself. The community may want to believe in your little vision of grandeur, but I know the truth. You're weak. You were always weak. His voice resonated through the room, inviting judgment rather than understanding. The crowd shifted uneasily as Richard stood firm. He wouldn't let Anthony's words drown out his resolve. You know nothing about me now, Richard said, his voice rising. I've taken responsibility, and I'm ready to rebuild. I'm doing this for every person I hurt back then. For this community. But what if you fail again? Anthony pressed, his eyes dancing with the thrill of creating chaos. You'll only bring more disappointment. Why should they trust someone who let them down before? The question hung in the air like a heavy weight. Richard's resolve wavered briefly, but he looked over at Lily, who nodded softly as if reminding him why he was fighting. Then Ethan spoke up again, his voice clear and firm. Maybe we all have something to lose, but we also have something to gain. Can't we see this as a chance? A chance for all of us? His courage was infectious, resonating through the room. Let us stand together and see where this leads. Richard's heart soared at Ethan's words. Could overcoming Anthony's presence actually unite them all? The crowd murmured with a renewed sense of energy, challenged by Anthony yet inspired to act. They were beginning to realize that the moment was about more than Richard. It was about their own strength and resilience. Maybe you're right about one thing, Anthony, Richard said, locking eyes with his former partner. I might fail, but I will not stop trying. Because I believe in this community, and I believe in myself. The room breathed in, caught in the tension between hope and despair. Did Richard truly have a chance to move forward, or was this just the calm before another storm? As Anthony's smirk turned to a frown, the atmosphere shifted yet again. What would he do next? The crowd braced themselves for whatever chaos this encounter would unleash. Would they weather the storm together? Or would Richard's moment slip away into the shadows once more? Richard held his breath as he locked eyes with Anthony. The air crackled like a live wire. Anthony smiled, but it was the kind of smile that sent chills running down Richard's spine. The crowd around them seemed to lean in, anticipation thick in the space between. Ah, the spirit of resilience. Anthony's voice dripped with mock admiration. It's truly inspiring. But let's be honest, Richard. You have no idea what you're up against. Before Richard could respond, Anthony waved his hand dismissively, silencing the room. You all want to believe in this man, he said, his tone turning conspiratorial. But have you forgotten the past? The lies? The deceit? The murmurings began again. And Richard could feel doubt creeping into the hearts of those who once looked at him with hope. Lily squeezed his hand tighter. Her eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. He had to stand strong. You think he is the man for the job? Anthony continued, pointing to Richard. You're placing your faith in someone who has failed you before. And if you think this is going to end differently, well, I've got some oceanfront property to sell you. Enough. Lily shouted suddenly, breaking through Anthony's diatribe. Her voice, powerful and unwavering, silenced the room. What Richard is doing matters. People can change. He is not asking for blind faith, he is asking for a chance to prove himself. The crowd turned to Lily, her passion igniting flickers of hope once again. It was something Richard had desperately wanted to shout, but hadn't he been able to find the words? He could see people beginning to nod, doubt melting away in the warmth of her words. Ethan stepped forward, joining Lily's resolve. We can't let the past define our future, he declared. So many of us have been through our own storms. We've all faced failure. But it's the willingness to try again that truly matters. Richard felt the energy shifting. If they stood together, maybe they could counter Anthony's poison. Slowly, people began to rally, murmurs of agreement growing louder. Let us not forget what it means to support each other. Someone yelled from the back. If we band together, how can we fail? Seeing the crowd come to life, Richard felt a swell of pride rise inside him. Here were people he had wronged, now rallying to stand by him. It filled his chest with warmth. He took a step forward, feeding off their energy. Thank you, he said, looking at Ethan and Lily, then slowly scanning the group before him. It means everything to know you're standing with me. I won't let you down again. Together, we can accomplish so much more than we ever could alone. Suddenly, the door at the back swung open, and just like that, the atmosphere shifted once more. An unfamiliar figure entered, silhouetted by the light behind them. The room fell silent, eyes now drawn to this new presence. Richard's breath caught in his throat. Who was this person? What could they bring to the table? Anthony's expression darkened, both curious and apprehensive. Can the past be undone? Richard thought, his pulse racing. As he turned his gaze to the new figure, he felt a sense of urgency rise within him. Was this person here to support him, or to stab him further? The stakes had just amplified, and Richard could feel the weight of his journey hanging in the balance. What did this newcomer want? Would they help him fight or tip the scales against him? The tension in the air was thick, and all eyes awaited an answer. The figure stepped into the room, slowly revealing a woman with striking red hair pulled back into a sleek bun. She wore a crisp white shirt, and there was an air of confidence about her that almost rivaled Anthony's bravado. Richard couldn't help but shift his weight, trying to gauge her intention. "What do you want?" came a voice from the crowd, an accusation, more than a question. The unease spread like wildfire. Richard's heart raced as he shared nervous glances with Lily and Ethan. This was not just another challenge to face. This was an unknown force. "Please let her answer," Richard urged, taking a step towards the newcomer. "We're all friends here, right?" She smiled softly, her blue eyes flashing with understanding as if she could see right into Richard's turmoil. "I'm not here to fight," she began, her tone calm yet filled with determination. "I'm here because I believe in change. I believe in second chances." Anthony scoffed, crossing his arms. "And who are you to make claims about belief? You don't even know these people." "Actually, I do," she said, addressing Anthony without losing her composure. "I'm Clara, and I've seen what people can achieve when they stand together, even in the face of doubt." Richard felt a flicker of hope ignite at the mention of her name. Clara. Her voice calmed his turbulent mind, but he couldn't shake off his suspicions. Who was she really? Clara continued, "Richard, I'm here to tell you that you're worthy of that belief. And I know how hard it is to shake off the past, the fears, the failures. But it's those very failures that carve out a map for your future." Richard's heart swelled. Clara had said what he needed to hear, words that felt like a lifeline tossed to him amidst a storm. But Anthony's presence loomed like a dark cloud, ready to stifle the small flicker of hope. "What's your angle, Clara?" Anthony asked, tilting his head. "You're not here to fix him. You're here for something more, aren't you?" Her gaze turned steely, yet kind. "I'm here to support Richard. I've seen how communities can rise when they're led with honesty and love. Not just promises. Love." The crowd murmured, the seed of her words embedding themselves into the collective consciousness. Richard could feel the weight of stares shifting, eyes that had once held doubt now beginning to shine with curiosity, and perhaps even hope. "Love is the cornerstone of change," Clara pressed on. "It's not just about proving yourself to others, it's about proving it to yourself. And only then can a community truly heal." Richard's thoughts raced. Could he embrace this second chance? Did he have what it took to change? And with Clara at his side, was it possible to build something strong enough to withstand Anthony's poison? From the corner of his eye, he caught Anthony's sneer, and something within him snapped. "No more running. No more hiding. If you believe in me, then let us show him that change doesn't come easy, but it's worth the fight." The crowd erupted in cheers and claps, energy flowing through the room. But as the excitement bubbled, Richard's heart still thudded heavily in his chest. What if this was just the beginning? He thought, a shiver of realization coursing through him. Before he could process it, Clara stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise. "You may have a battle ahead, Richard. But when we stand unified, anything is possible. It's time to face Anthony and the lies he feeds." Richard nodded, his breath catching again in his throat. The path ahead was shadowy and uncertain, but he felt a newer strength building inside him. "Let us do this together," he declared. As he locked eyes with Clara again, he knew there was no turning back. The fight was just beginning, and the real question loomed over him like an omniscient shadow. Would he find the courage to confront not just Anthony but the ghosts of his own past that lingered? And as the crowd surged around him, full of hope and determination, he wondered, would he finally be able to rewrite his story? The cheers from the crowd faded into a tense stillness as Richard locked eyes with Clara. There was something electric about the moment, a blend of fear and hope that coursed through him. Clara's unwavering gaze steadied him, a beacon pulling him away from the edge of his doubts. "Are you really ready for this?" she whispered, just loud enough for him to hear above the buzz of murmurs. He could see the concern etched on her face, but there was also a fierce determination that made him feel lighter. More than I've ever been, he replied, though he could hardly believe it himself. This was uncharted territory, the kind only mapped out by dreams of what could be. Clara smiled, and it was as if she had handed him a shield against his fears. Then let us make this count. With newfound resolve, Richard turned back to the crowd. The faces surrounding him had shifted, filled with waiting anticipation. They were all counting on him now. Together, he started, his voice steadying, we're going to show Anthony that we won't be defined by what we've been through. We're more than our mistakes. A wave of emotion washed over him. Memories flooding in the moments of failure, of despair. Yet in this very instant he felt lighter. The room responded with a murmur of agreement, shoulders straightening and eyes brightening. But just then, Anthony broke through the crowd, shoving his way toward Richard, his scorn palpable. You think you've got what it takes to take me down? You're a joke, Richard. Nothing more than a failed dreamer. Richard's heart raced. Doubt clawed at him, trying to pull him back into his old mindset. But he glanced at Clara, who remained steadfast beside him. Her unwavering presence rekindled the flicker of courage inside, and he spoke louder this time. No. I won't let your words bind me anymore, he declared, feeling a surge of defiance. I'm done with that. You can keep your poison. We're transforming it into power. The crowd reacted, their cheers drowning out Anthony's skepticism. The fire in Richard's heart ignited, battling against the icy shadow that Anthony cast over him. Clara stepped forward, her presence fortifying Richard's resolve. It's time we put our love into action. We can rise from the ashes of our past. Together, we can break free from this web of fear. Richard felt the crowd's energy swell. And for the first time, he realized the truth hidden in Clara's words. Change wasn't merely a desire, it was a choice. And as Anthony attempted to step closer, the crowd formed a protective barrier around Richard and Clara. He could see the faces filled with determination. Unity stirring in the air like electricity. Each person around them was choosing to believe in something greater than the negativity that had once tied them down. Richard turned to face Anthony fully. This isn't just about you and me anymore. It's about all of us. We can't be silenced or belittled by you any longer. Anthony scoffed again but faltered, taken aback by the strength radiating from the assembled group. The murmur shifted in tone, filled with conviction. Richard felt something in him shift, an understanding that breaking free required collective strength, not just individual resolve. Let us show him the power of community, Clara added, her voice rising above the din. Let us raise our voices in unison, drowning out the doubt that desires to keep us apart. Together, we're unstoppable. The crowd erupted again, louder this time, a living testament to their shared hopes and desires. Richard felt a wave of warmth wash over him, their energy growing more potent. In that moment, Richard realized that this was no longer just a fight against Anthony. It was a fight for every person who ever felt unheard, every heart that yearned for change. But as he stood amidst the growing roar of support, one thought nagged at the back of his mind. Would their unity be enough to shatter Anthony's grip? Or was this just the calm before an even bigger storm? As the energy built around him, Richard steeled himself for whatever lay ahead. The battle for his life and the lives of everyone around him was just beginning. And deep inside, he knew this was only the start of the greatest challenge of his life. The crowd's roar enveloped Richard, wrapping him in a blanket of shared dreams and renewed confidence. He had never felt so supported, yet the shadows of doubt still loomed. He glanced at Clara, her eyes shimmering with hope, and he knew he couldn't falter. Not now, not when they were all counting on him. Let us show them, he urged the assembled group. We're not just survivors, we're fighters. There was a collective agreement, a surge of energy flooding through the group. Richard could see it in their eyes, the fire igniting within them. They were rising together, stronger than ever. His own heartbeat quickened, matching the rhythm of their gathering momentum. Who's with us? Clara shouted, her voice slicing through the noise. The crowd responded with thrilled cheers, their collective spirit palpable. Richard lifted his arms, encouraging them to join him, the movement echoing through the throng. But even amidst the swelling unity, A flicker of uncertainty whispered through him. Anthony was still there, glaring and seething, an ever-present reminder of what they were fighting against. Richard turned his attention back to him, searching for any sign of weakness, any crack in the armor of his arrogant confidence. "You think you can drown out my voice?" Anthony sneered, his lips curving into a malicious smile as he moved closer. "I'm the one who sets the tone here. You're all just a bunch of misplaced hopes." Richard felt a gravelly chill. The weight of Anthony's words collided with their collective exhilaration, setting off a clash of emotions. He felt the fight in the crowd start to waver, uncertainty creeping in like fog on a cool morning. Richard knew they couldn't allow that doubt to take root. "Look around. Look at each other." Richard's voice rose, steady and commanding. "This isn't about one man's control. It's about all of us, our pain, our triumphs, our dreams. We're not afraid anymore." He could see Clara nodding, the spark of bravery lighting her expression. When she spoke, the crowd leaned in closer, ready to latch on to her every word. "Fear can only hold us back if we let it. Together, we have the power to break free and roar louder than any voices of intimidation." A wave of energy rippled through the crowd again, eyes glistening with the fire of conviction. They shouted together, a chorus of resolve that seemed to pierce through the very air, battling against the looming storm of Anthony's doubt. Richard inhaled deeply, feeling the raw power of their unity. This was it, their moment to reclaim their voices. "We are more than the struggles we've faced. We are resilient, and we will not let anyone take that away." But Anthony, seemingly unfazed, sneered once more. "Resilient? You're all just fooling yourselves. I'll show you what you lack." Something in Anthony's eyes twisted, a dark flicker of desperation. Richard recognized it for what it was, a weakness. The realization ignited a flicker of hope deep inside him. Was it possible? Did they really have the strength to turn the tide? His heart raced as he glanced around at his comrades, each one a battle-worn warrior, ready to charge into the fray. Richard turned toward Clara, her eyes gleaming with unyielding trust. "Let us not just stand here and exchange words," he said, a new spark of determination igniting within him. "Let us show Anthony our strength. Together." The crowd erupted again, the sound an unshakable force that echoed throughout the room. Richard felt himself grinning. This was more than a challenge. It was a transformation. But just as hope surged forward, Anthony's eyes darkened, and with a wave of his hand, he signaled something unseen. Richard's heart sank as he felt a sudden shift in the atmosphere, a chill sweeping through the crowd. "What is he planning?" Clara whispered, her grip tightening on Richard's arm. Before he could answer, a loud crash echoed from behind them, sending a jolt of fear rippling through the crowd. Richard turned, eyes wide with dread as he braced for whatever was about to unfold. Would the bond they had forged be strong enough to withstand whatever storm Anthony was unleashing? Or were they standing on shaky ground, just moments away from collapse? The echo of the crash resonated through the air, zigzagging between the faces of the crowd. Richard's gaze shot from Clara to the source of the sound, dread pooling in his stomach. What had Anthony unleashed? The crowd's excitement twisted into confusion, gasps replacing cheers. Richard could see the flicker of vulnerability on Clara's face. She seemed to sense it, the tension that thickened the air like a fog, smothering their fire. He swallowed hard, fighting the icy grip of fear tightening around his chest. Though his instincts screamed for him to run, to shield Clara and the others, something held him firm. They had fought too hard for this moment. Richard clenched his fists, forcing back any hesitation. "Stay focused," he shouted, his voice breaking through the rising panic. "This is our time. No one can take that from us." As the sound of chaos shifted closer, Richard's heart raced in tandem with the apprehension of those around him. He spotted individuals in the back, glancing nervously over their shoulders. Some were biting their lips, hands clenched. The pulse of collective fear was palpable, a wave of uncertainty threatening to sweep them all away. "Richard!" Clara's voice cut through his swirling thoughts. She stepped closer, squeezing his hand. "We can't let him control us. We need to act." She looked around, determination taking root in her eyes. He nodded, willing his doubts to evaporate. "You're right." His mind raced. What could they do? "We can create distractions." If we can keep Anthony's focus away from the crowd, a plan was forming, a fragile thread to grasp. Clara's expression brightened slightly. We can create a barrier. Everyone, hold hands. We need to show unity. She called this out, her voice stronger now. People instinctively moved closer, fingers interlocking across the shifting sea of bodies. Richard could almost feel the charged energy in the room. They were intertwining their strength, treasuring hope against despair. But all at once it happened. Another crash, and the back door shattered open. A figure stumbled into the light, glass raining around them like confetti. Richard's heart dropped as he recognized Anthony's cadre, dark silhouettes moving with intent. You think a chain of hands can protect you? Anthony's voice rang out, cold and mocking, as he stepped forward, fists clenched. You've only made it easier for me to break you. Richard's got twisted. There was something feral in Anthony's eyes. A desperation that set Richard's instincts on high alert. Don't break ranks, he shouted, heart thrumming like thunder. We hold together, no matter what he throws. Clara's nails pressed into his palm, and he felt that same spark of unwavering belief reflected in her eyes. They weren't just a crowd anymore, they were a family, a fortress made of shared resolve. But then, as if sensing the rising tide of defiance, Anthony pointed, and the room darkened further. Shadows flickered, and suddenly, a blinding light burst through, lights flashing. Confusion spinning into chaos as the crowd wavered. Focus. Trust each other. Richard yelled, hoping to drown out the uncertainty. But could he really hold the line against Anthony's unyielding rage? Would hope rise or break apart into fragments of fear? They were standing at the edge now, a gnawing fear whispering that their moment might slip away. Would their bond be strong enough to face the oncoming storm? Or would everything they built be swept away? As the lights pulsed and the room began to transform, Richard's breath hitched. What was about to unfold? Would it unite them further, or tear their fragile world apart? The room was alive, pulsating with a mixture of chaos and hope. Richard could feel the electricity that hung in the air, a charged atmosphere struggling between fear and unity. He took a deep breath, grounding himself amidst the turbulence. We can do this, he shouted, arms outstretched, calling on every flicker of strength found in those around him. Anthony's laughter cut through the noise, dark and mocking, but Richard was undeterred. Your power is nothing, he proclaimed, feeling the vibrancy of the crowd anchoring him. Clara's hand tightened around his, lending him strength as they stood shoulder to shoulder against the storm brewing between them and Anthony. Suddenly, someone at the back of the crowd shouted, "Hold tight!" And the people linked their hands even more firmly, their resolve deepening with every heartbeat. Each individual face reflected a momentary flash of fear, but it quickly transformed into determination. Richard could almost see their hearts synchronizing, a united front against the darkness threatening to swallow them whole. With imperceptible strength, Richard found himself stepping toward the pulse of energy they created. Don't let his words wound you, he cried, his voice slicing through the enveloping chaos. Together, we're stronger than his doubts. Together, we've risen beyond our pasts. A heartbeat of silence erupted as they listened, the truth of his words taking shape. He could see the flickers of doubt dissipating, replaced with glimmers of faith and solidarity. A raw voice from within the crowd echoed, "We are here for each other." And like wave after wave, more voices joined until they formed a tumultuous chant. For each other. For each other. Richard could feel emotions pouring across him like waves, joy, desperation, but most importantly, hope. He turned toward Clara, who looked radiant against the storm, and without a second thought, he added, "This is our moment. Let today be the day we shine brighter than ever before." As if that phrase hung in the air, the crowd surged ahead. They pushed forward, creating a tide that rippled against Anthony's dark presence. The shadows around Anthony flickered uneasily. His usually confident demeanor wavered, and Richard felt emboldened by the sight. "Everyone," he roared, eyes shining brighter than ever. "Love is stronger than hate. A community bound by trust can overcome anything." Clara nodded in agreement. "We use our love to build, not to tear each other down. Richard and I stand for everyone who has ever felt lost or judged." With those words, the weight that had loomed over them for so long burst, shattering the darkness into palpable light. It resonated from every soul who had gathered. It turned into a radiance that wrapped around them like a sturdy cloak, pushing Anthony back and cracking the hold he had over their hearts. "Stay united!" Richard shouted, echoing Clara's call for connection. He could feel the fervor coursing through him like wildfire. They were not just faces in a crowd. Here they stood as a family, one heart beating as one. As Richard stood, arms raised, reflecting their unity, Anthony's expression twisted with frustration. His own form shrank in comparison to the swirling beacon of hope before him. "You'll all regret this," Anthony spat, venom lacing his voice. "Trusting a loser like him." But the crowd chanted back, the sound wrapping around them like a protective wall, drowning out the negativity. "We believe. We believe." Just then, something clicked within Richard. A realization that blossomed like dawn breaking through the dark. He looked at Anthony, no longer seeing the man who had instilled fear, but a broken figure desperate to maintain control. "You have the power to change too, Anthony." Richard spoke, the courage in his voice matching the beating of the hopeful hearts around him. "You don't have to let anger consume you. Every person deserves a chance, even you." The crowd fell silent, astonished by his audacity, and Anthony froze. Richard had shattered the defense Anthony built, opening an opportunity. A moment that could lead to change. For everyone, including Anthony himself. The energy shifted yet again, the crowd shifting from fear to compassion, urging Anthony to see something beyond himself. "It can start here," Clara added, echoing Richard's sentiment, her voice unfaltering. "Join us. Don't let the struggle define you, make it a building block. Let us forge a future together." Time hung suspended, the air thick with anticipation. Richard held his breath, heart racing at the possibility. Would Anthony choose unity or allow himself to tumble farther into darkness? The vulnerability swirled around them, the tension tangible. Yet hope remained suspended, a fragile promise of connection. Then, to everyone's disbelief, Anthony's shoulders slumped, and the fight seemed to seep out of him. For the first time, he appeared less like a formidable barrier, and more like a man plagued by his past mistakes. "I don't know if I can," he breathed, a hint of fear edging his voice. Richard stepped forward, but this time there was no anger, only understanding. "No one expects perfection, Anthony. We all have scars. Let us face them together. Step into the light, and you might find there's a place for you here." And as the crowd surged forward one last time, together they shouted, "Join us." In that pivotal moment, the choice fell upon Anthony, the man who had once sought to destroy the very foundation they now stood upon. Richard held his breath, waiting, hoping for a glimpse of a new beginning, the first step toward redemption. Finally, with a trembling hand, Anthony reached out, his voice wavering. Maybe Richard exhaled slowly, a powerful wave of relief sweeping over him. They were tied together now, destinies woven into a single thread, hopeful and shining. And hope can be a powerful force, he thought, because they had no idea what would come next. Yet they were ready to face all of it together. As the crowd erupted in joy, clarity washed over Richard. This was only the beginning, a new chapter lying ahead, vibrant and filled with promise. Individual paths merged into a shared road, where love and acceptance broke down barriers, forging an unbreakable bond. "This is what change looks like," Richard whispered, feeling the warmth of connection wrap around him. "This is just the start of everything." And with laughter echoing through the hall, Richard smiled, embracing the existence of so much hope. Each step forward would echo resilience, trimming away the shadows that lingered behind them. They were ready to rewrite their story. So what about you? Are you ready to join the journey of transformation? You need to subscribe now to never miss the next empowering stories that inspire hope and resilience. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm and help this journey reach others. Comment down below your reactions and thoughts on this breathtaking ending. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who could use some love and hope in their lives. Let us spread this answer to transformation together.